Matt Walsh and Nick Carter are partners at Castle Island Ventures. All views expressed by them or the guests on this podcast are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Castle Island Ventures. Guests and hosts may maintain positions in the assets discussed in this podcast. You should not treat any opinion expressed by anyone on this podcast as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of their personal opinion. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Brought down by bad mortgage investments, Lehman, which has 25,000 employees, will be liquidated.
The federal government loans American International Group, AIG, $85 billion.
This is a different kind of market, and the Fed is asleep.
The federal government is stepping in to stabilize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two mortgage giants that have been threatened by the housing crisis.
The Bank of England has pumped £75 billion more into Britain's ailing economy with a new round of quantitative easing.
You print a couple $1 trillion, and all of a sudden, people start to worry. So out of this worry, we have something called the Bitcoin.
Welcome to On the Brink. I'm Matt Walsh.
And I'm Nick Carter.
And if you listen to the show, you know that we take tax, accounting, and auditing very seriously. And when it comes to digital assets, building up trust with your counterparties like custodians, brokerages, and regulators is very important. And that's where Witham comes in. They're a top 25 accounting, tax, and advisory firm, and they have a team of professionals that is dedicated to the digital asset and blockchain industry. They help some of the highest profile companies in our industry with tax advisory, accounting for token sales, stablecoin audits, financial statement audits, and much, much more. Witham is passionate about this space. They're passionate about helping you and your company achieve your goals. So head over to witham.com/crypto to learn more. All right. Coming down the home stretch here.
Yeah, by the time we release this next episode next week, we might have a winner. Hope, fingers crossed.
I would hope so. Do you think it's going to be one of these things that just drags out for a week?
Yeah, I do, actually. I think it's going to be like 2000. We're not going to know until January or something.
I don't know if I can take that, man.
No, my heart can't take the stress here.
That's crazy. Well, this will be hopefully the last podcast before we have a new president and in waiting, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's tight. Trump's coming down. He's sold off a lot on the Polymarket. He's trading at 60 cents on the dollar. I don't know what happened, but it's been a collapse in Trump land recently.
Yeah, these prediction markets, I don't know what to make of them. And the polls seem like they're very tight, but I don't know whether to trust the polls or the prediction markets.
So Trump had a tweet today. Today is the 16th anniversary of the Bitcoin white paper. He had a tweet about it. He says, "We will end Camel's war on crypto and Bitcoin will be made in the USA," in all caps. It's kind of surreal to see that from a former president. I mean, if you zoom out a little bit, that's kind of nuts.
It is crazy. And he had a free Ross hashtag, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of, I guess we can get into this later, but Nishad Singh got 0 years in his he got 0 years of prison time. Caroline Ellison got 2 years?
2 years.
The Parents from Hell, that investigation was dropped, and poor Ryan Salame is 7.5 years.
That's crazy.
Is he a candidate for clemency, actually? I'm starting to think he might be.
Well, certainly not if Harris wins, but you would definitely think if Trump wins, then he would be a candidate for clemency.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking more and more political as these other convictions roll in. I'm getting more and more kind of scandalized by this whole thing.
It's wild to me that Nishad Singh got 0 years. Talk about a bad precedent to set. I mean, this guy was involved in the fraud.
Yeah, and Salami, I guess his crime was being a Republican or something. Like, this is ridiculous.
Campaign finance, but not involved in the fraud. It's very, very puzzling to me.
If campaign finance was the problem, why is Barbara Fried off the hook in that case?
You know who she was funneling through is Nishad Singh.
Yeah, I mean, she was
so
completely
those charges
off the
were
hook.
never brought.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it seems like a really bad precedent to set. It's like Nishad was not the mastermind of the whole scheme, but he was a co-founder of the company, and he was involved at every level of this fraud from a technical perspective. And he had the campaign finance thing where he's funneling money for Bankman-Fried's mother. And, it's not like he blew the whistle on this whole thing. He went down with the ship. He's a bad boy.
This is preposterous. Well, more on that later. There are a ton of deals to get through, so I guess let's dive into those.
Yeah, a lot of deals. We're starting to ramp up on the podcast too. So I did one with Pat Larson at Zen Ledger this week, talking about digital asset tax and compliance, and we've got a few more in the queue here. So we'll have some podcast density over the next few weeks here. Hopping into the deals.
First up, we have Nillion, a privacy-focused decentralized network. There is $25 million from Hack VC and others.
Then it's Gelato Network. This is a roll-up development platform that raised $11 million from Hack VC, Animoca, and IOSG.
Then you have Glow Labs, their decentralized solar power network. There is $30 million from Framework, USV, and others.
BitSmiley is a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin protocol that raised $10 million from NextGen, CA Capital, and MH Ventures.
Then you have Blue Sky, of course, the decentralized social network app that I guess Jack Dorsey sort of endorsed and then later abandoned. They raised $15 million from Blockchain Capital, Alumni Ventures, and True Ventures.
I thought he was involved in that. Is he not?
I think he had a thread recently about why it didn't work and sort of leaving it to its own devices. But I guess they're still going.
Do they have an app?
I think so.
Is there a Blue Sky app? I don't know. We don't have a community on Blue Sky.
No.
We do on Warpcast.
Yeah, Blue Sky was a lot of people that are, I guess, upset about Elon buying Twitter went to Blue Sky.
I see. Okay. Next one up is Ellipsis Labs. This is a DeFi infrastructure company that raised $21 million from Han Ventures, Electric, and Paradigm.
Then we have Spire, an infrastructure platform for app chains. There is $11 million from Anagram, Maven 11, and Bankless Ventures.
Nitro Labs is a Solana scaling protocol. They raised $4 million from Lemnis, Animoca, and Borderless.
Then we have Phylax, their security protocol for decentralized applications. They raised $4.5 million from Figment Capital, Nascent, and Hash3.
Chainway Labs is a developer of a Bitcoin Layer 2 that raised $14 million from Founders Fund, Maven 11, Marana Ventures, and others.
Then we have Cap Labs, their stablecoin DeFi protocol. They raised $2 million from Anagram, Robo Ventures, and SCB Limited.
Deals keep on coming this week. Magma DAO, which is a liquid staking protocol on top of Monad, they raised $4 million from Blackcelerate, Maelstrom, CMS Holdings, and others.
Then we have Sapien, a decentralized data collection network. They raised $10 million from Variant, Primitive, and Animoca.
And the last one is Moonwalk Fitness. This is a Web3 health accountability app. They raised $3.4 million from Hack VC, Reciprocal, CMS, and a number of others. Web3 health accountability. I kind of need a Web3 health accountability. Been slipping on getting the steps in.
Shout out to KW on that one. On the news front, actually, before we dive into the news, we have our Metrics Minute, courtesy of Coin Metrics. Is all about Polymarket. Of course, the name on everyone's lips these days. They have attracted a ton of attention in the lead up to the elections, with over 200 million in open positions or capital actively at stake across its markets. Polymarket drives 13% of all Polygon transactions and consumes a quarter of the network's gas. In July, when Trump's odds peaked at 70%, Bitcoin price movements were correlated to that market with at a rate of 0.45, showing a positive relationship. In October, correlations between Bitcoin and Trump's odds have dropped to near zero. Interestingly, on Polymarket, there's been a lot of discussion around wash trading, which we'll get into, but the TVL has skyrocketed from about 25 million to over 200 million recently. So I would argue that wash trading or trading volumes is not the metric to monitor, but rather TVL. I'd say Metrics Minute.
Interesting Metrics Minute. So the price of Bitcoin was moving this week. So as the time of recording, we're a little bit over 70K, but we got all the way to 73.2 or something.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I think election night, we could see some intense swings. So prepare yourself for that.
What do you make of the movement this week? Obviously, the open interest was up, and so seemed like there's a lot of leverage coming into the system, but the MicroStrategy news, which we'll talk about, could have been driving this. Maybe some people front running that story.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the first story of the week is MicroStrategy wants to raise $42 billion in the next 3 years to raise more Bitcoin. between equity offerings and the issuance of bonds as well. Not really sure what to make of that.
We should do just a full-blown episode on MicroStrategy, because it is one of the more fascinating just financial engineering experiments, I guess, that has ever happened. And maybe we get Quinn Thompson back on the podcast. He's a good follow on this at Lecker Capital. But yeah, so it's called the 21-21 plan. So they're targeting 21 million it's basically a shelf offering of equity, like at the current mark equity offering, plus $21 billion of fixed income securities. So total of $42 billion over 3 years. Obviously there has to be a market to absorb that, but it's crazy. I mean, it's basically going to be a even bigger version of what it is now.
Yeah, I don't understand it at all. So yeah, I think we should have someone on to discuss it.
So as of September 30th, MicroStrategy held 252,220 Bitcoins with a market value of about $16 billion. It's just a staggering amount of capital. So in the third quarter, there is 2.1 billion through equity and debt, and they were able to expand their Bitcoin holdings by 11%. They have the operating business and they're servicing the cash flows, and this debt is being issued at sub 1%, coupons. So I guess they can keep on going here as long as they have the cash coming off the core business to be able to service the debt.
Yeah, I suppose if Bitcoin is growing faster than the interest rate on the debt, then it's sustainable, presumably. Is that it? Is that the calculus?
That's sort of the
but it's not like they're
back
selling,
of the envelope, right?
They're not really willing to sell the Bitcoin to deal with the interest payments.
My question on this, and it's knowable, the answer to this, but at what point does Saylor lose control over the vote here at the board, or does he just never lose control? Does he have the vote forever, regardless of what percentage of the business he owns?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I feel like we should know the answer to that.
Because that's just a lot of dilution coming. It's basically would be $42 billion worth of dilution, because these are, generally speaking, convertible notes that come in as equity after. So it's a big swing, put it that way.
So on the asset management side, IBIT, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, they had $872 million of inflows on Wednesday. It's a new record for the fund. The ETFs have just been scooping up Bitcoin. I think I saw on Twitter, actually, they're on track to surpass Satoshi's holdings of Bitcoin next month with 1.1 million Bitcoins collectively between all of them.
So I guess part of this is probably just a little bit of leverage coming into the system, I suppose. I wonder who is buying these. The other part of this is, we don't even talk about it on the show anymore, but every couple of weeks you see new wirehouse platforms adding Bitcoin ETFs, new RIA shops adding Bitcoin ETFs, new products coming out. So Bitcoin ETFs are just clawing ahead within TradFi in terms of just access points.
Yeah. I want to talk about this Fortune article on Polymarket. Did you see it this week?
I did.
So I like Leo Schwartz. I think he's a really solid journalist over there at Fortune. My issue is not really with the article itself. It's more with the commentary around it. And I think people are using this to try and discredit the prediction markets. So the article basically says that Chaos Labs and Inca Digital both basically completed investigations, finding that there was a lot of wash trading. Chaos Labs found a third of the volume on the presidential market to be wash trading. This is being used in the broader discourse to basically say that Polymarket is not an accurate representation of, the presidential odds, which is interesting because obviously Trump's odds are coming down now. And I've seen some people on the left say Trump is going to use, basically the conspiracy is Trump is somehow inflating the odds on Polymarket, or people that are pro-Trump, and that Trump would then use that as a pretext to claim that the election was stolen if he loses. So that's kind of the conspiracy I'm seeing a lot. The problem is yes, there's probably wash trading because what people are doing is registering trades on Polymarket. There's no fees, by the way, in order to, season it for a potential future airdrop, right? So this is behavior we see all the time on DeFi protocols, is non-economically utilize the protocol, amass a track record of using it to qualify for points or a retroactive airdrop. So that's why this is happening. Also, wash trading is you're buying and selling at the same time, so you're not really trying to influence the price. So I don't think this discovery at all discredits the price on the market. I don't think it invalidates the odds that the market is outputting. So yeah, I just thought we should clarify that.
Yeah, it's the idea of wash trading on a protocol or just doing non-economic activity on a protocol for points is certainly not something that the mainstream press can even understand.
Right.
It's kind of like it's not even worth having that conversation. But yeah, this doesn't seem like market manipulation as much as it just seems like Sybil attacks in the hopes that eventually you would get a token.
Yeah. It's kind of weird how prominent Polymarket is in the discourse now. It got way bigger than I thought, and it's odd seeing ordinary sort of like political pundit types have opinions on it. It's like, kind of wish we could just limit it to people that have made a trade and understand how these market works.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you look at the other betting markets. So if you go to like electionbettingodds.com, it has the aggregate feed, and Polymarket just has ridiculous volume advantage versus the other ones, but it's not like the other ones are wildly divergent in terms of who they're saying is going to win this election.
Yeah, Polymarket trades in line with the other prediction markets, Kalshi and Predictit, and with all the bookies. Of course, you could say it's arbitrage. So, Polymarket is probably about 90% of the volume globally, and so they might be the tail that wags the dog. But yeah, I'm not seeing any big dislocations on Polymarket that would lend credence to this theory.
Yeah. I mean, all the pollsters have this race a lot tighter than Polymarket, though, as we said earlier.
Right. Speaking of the race, Coinbase have pledged a donation of $25 million to Fairshake to be used for the 2026 midterms. So they are looking ahead.
That's good. I mean, you like to see this. You don't want to see the capital dry up and go away. Depending on the outcome of this election, there's going to be some super important races coming up in the 2026 midterms. Probably going to be talking about a House and a Senate with a very narrow majority on one way or the other, whichever way this breaks. And you need to keep market structure bill top of mind for folks. Like, you got to get market structure bill done in the next few years here.
Yeah, the crypto lobby is only a compelling lobby if we are able to replicate. Well, if we're able to swing any of these races, but also if we're able to do it over time.
So what are the races that you're watching for Tuesday night outside of the presidential?
Well, Ohio is really close, actually. It's a dead heat last time I checked. Let's see what the latest is there. Yeah, actually, just in the last couple of days, Bernie Moreno has crept up ahead of Sherrod Brown by about a point in the consolidated polls. That would be fantastic, frankly, if we won Ohio and unseated Brown. That would also basically guarantee the Senate for the Republicans too.
So that's your big one. Yeah. So that would be a huge one because Sherrod Brown chairs Senate banking, and if he loses and you have a red Senate, then you're going to get Tim Scott, I believe, would be the ranking member. So that would be a very pro-crypto individual at the head of that committee. The other one is John Tester in Montana. And so John Tester has been one of the more anti-crypto senators out there.
Yeah, he's up. I'm looking at it right now, 50 to 45. So, almost out of the margin of error at this point. So that looks like a pickup for the Republicans too.
The other tight race is in Nevada, of course. How are we looking in Nevada?
That one's Rosen is favored, the Democrat, 48 to 43. So that looks like it'll be a Democrat win.
Yeah, and Brown, I believe, is is the other candidate there, and he's quite pro-crypto. Then you have Massachusetts. I don't know. Massachusetts doesn't look great to take down Elizabeth Warren, but...
Yeah, despite Deaton's debate performance, he's down 36 to 58. So that's probably going to remain a Democrat stronghold.
Did we talk about his debate performance? I thought he was great in those two debates.
I didn't watch it. I mean, but also Elizabeth Warren is not my senator, so...
Yeah, it didn't get a lot of coverage. It wasn't even, I don't even think it was on TV. You had to watch it online, but he did quite well.
So did you see this U.S. Treasury report recently on all sorts of things, but had a section on stablecoins and tokenized T-bills? It was
I sure did.
It was crafted for the Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee, which I don't know what that is. But this report was like a love letter to CBDCs.
Yeah, I love the fact that people are so online in this industry, because this is on page like 118 of a 300-page PDF that the Treasury put out, and there is a section on stablecoins.
Yeah. I mean,
kind of a tough conclusion to it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty sanguine about stablecoins. I mean, they certainly demonstrate an understanding of the sector. Talked about the growth there. They said it's resulted in a, quote, modest increase in demand for short-dated treasuries. But they don't really like stablecoins very much. They cited this Gorton and Zhang paper, which I really hate, which is basically this paper saying that stablecoins violate the NQA principle, which NQA stands for no questions asked. So basically, they say that stablecoins are not a good monetary product because they can depeg, and so these economists think that you have to constantly like reassess the viability of stablecoins, so they're not a good medium of exchange, which is like, it's like a classic, like this doesn't work in theory, but it works in practice. And it's like, well, just look at the real world data here. Like tens of millions of people use stablecoins pretty much every day. They're not considering what some economists say about the theoretical viability of stablecoins at all. They just use them because they work. So it's like such a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah. There are a few slides that outline kind of how the industry works that I thought were pretty good. But, I mean, did you catch the private blockchain part?
Yeah, I mean, they really like private blockchains. They have this matrix entitled optimal blockchain design, and the variables are private, public, permissionless, and permissioned. They have a giant X on the public and permissionless quadrant and a big old tick mark on the private and permissioned quadrant, and it says ideally managed by a trusted government authority. It's like, I don't even think you can call it a blockchain at this point. Like, what year is it?
I mean, it's such a ridiculous thing. It's like you take a bunch of academics and theoretical people and they're telling you how something ought to work, when in practice it's just going to work how people want it to work ultimately, right? It's a public open access network, and people have found ways to issue stable coins on them within the bounds of the law, I might add. It's like having a pizza manufacturer say, look, the way you have to eat this pizza is you have to cut it up with a fork and a knife and then eat it, and that's the way you do it. And it's like, no, people just are going to eat it.
Yeah.
People are just going to take the pizza and eat it.
I know, it's this arrogance that we hear from central bankers and like financial regulators all the time, which is like, all right, this thing that's like going on in the world, billions of dollars, people are using it, tons of capital deployed, lots of smart. Okay, forget about that thing. What about our theoretical thing that's better, that conforms to our priors of how these systems should work? So we're just going to completely ignore the deployed, in production system that people are using, and we're just going to decide that the better way to do tokenized treasuries in this case is on some kind of a DLT, like central bank consortium, despite the fact that none of these things have ever come to fruition at all.
Yeah. Oh, it totally reminds me of these purveyors of private blockchains in 2015 and 2016, where you get these pitches and it's like, yeah, like Bitcoin, that's a really cool proof of concept experiment, but that's never going to work for financial institutions. So we're going to build a permissioned private blockchain, and you're going to issue assets onto that chain, and like that'll be how it works. We're just going to push this on you, and you'd see these charts where it'd just be public, X out, private, yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because all these CBDC pilots that have been announced, and I think Cato has a good tracker of these. I mean, it's just they're not going anywhere. And the places where CBDCs have been deployed, they only work if there's coercion involved. So clearly no one really wants these things. People do want stablecoins. Stablecoins work because of the permissionlessness, the fact that you can hold them in a non-custodial wallet, that they can easily be proliferated globally. So it's like the thing about that people like about stablecoins is the thing that would not exist with a CBDC. So it's just baffling that they think they have a better solution. And also on that note, this week the BIS said that they're no longer working on Project Enbridge, which is this cross-border payment network for CBDCs, which was backed by China, Hong Kong, UAE, Saudi Arabia. So these CBDC pilots are just not getting any traction at all.
I mean, because ultimately, who is going to run these private networks? Like, you're talking about an actual significant expenditure by the government to deploy a technology project, and that doesn't always work out very well. And so unless you're going to lean on your banking sector and force them to do something, which in a lot of countries you wouldn't be able to do, there's just no path to market for this stuff. And a lot of the use cases, it's impossible to build a business case around. So if you're a bank and you're looking at one of these private chains things, it's like, am I going to make any more money doing this? Or am I just going to have to spend a bunch of money on IT integration to a new platform? And who's in charge of this thing again? Oh, we have like equal ownership on this private chain. Like, what if it goes down? Who do I sue? It's the whole thing is just so not viable.
Yeah. So there was an interesting dashboard this week published by the Blockchain Association, which is tracking the SEC's anti-crypto crusade, as they call it. Basically looking at Gensler's regulation by enforcement approach. And they claim that $426 million have been spent in defensive litigation in the crypto space to date.
I believe it. I bet it could be more than that. I mean, I bet Ripple alone has spent over $100 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's an eye-popping amount. There's been some debate as to, let's say if Trump wins, whether he can fire Gensler on day one. And a lot of people are saying, oh, you can't legally fire the SEC commissioner. I think you can. I think you can find a way to force him out.
Do you think he'd want to stay? I mean,
right. I mean, and if Trump wins, I think they could, go into the records and release, a bunch of documents that make him look bad as well. There's a lot of ways to, run a pressure campaign.
The mechanics of how that would work would be interesting. Obviously, there are some candidates that have been whispered as potential shortlist candidates for SEC. SEC is a very important post. I mean, there is actual things they could do at the SEC that would promote the industry pretty materially. You could start with no action letters. You could put out proposed rules. You could testify in front of Congress, and when they ask you questions, you could say, look, we don't really have the mandate for this, so you guys have to pass some laws. There's a lot of things the SEC chair could do.
How about Howard Lutnick as the chair of Trump's transition team? How good is he?
I saw that. I mean, he's on the economic policy stuff. I think he's making a lot of sense. I wonder if he wants a spot in this administration.
I think he would do a great job. Although, I guess he would have to step down from Cantor if he did that, right?
Well, the thing is, when you get the TAP as Treasury Secretary, you get to sell your holdings with no taxes. Hank Paulson was able to do this when he left Goldman. He was a partner at Goldman. He got tapped to be Treasury Secretary for Bush, and he had like $500 million worth of Goldman stock that he was able to sell with zero tax. So it's the best trade ever.
It's a nice perk.
So that's why, Jamie Dimon, Ken Griffin, all these guys will have interest in a post, I would imagine.
I just love Lutnick's speaking style. I think he's such a compelling speaker.
Yeah, I listened to him on the Palm podcast this week. Palm's been on a little bit of a roll here with getting big podcast guests, so that was a good one.
There was an interesting letter from Chad Cascarilla of Paxos this week to both VP Harris and Trump, basically saying that Paxos has been kind of forced out of the U.S. I mean, they've been harassed in so many different ways.
Paxos is one of the most hard done by companies in the space as it relates to regulatory. These guys have been trying to do it the right way for ages, dating back to 2015 with ItBit. So just totally kneecapped on this SEC case against Binance, where they named the Paxos powered stablecoin as security.
Yeah, I mean, in so many different ways, Paxos have suffered under adverse financial regulation in this country. I mean, they were, I think, maybe the first BitLicense recipient in New York. Were they the first?
They're one of the first.
Yeah, BitLicense, and they had to go, overseas to issue their new stablecoin. Had to go to Dubai. I mean, it's very telling.
Yeah, just been hamstrung from NYDFS on assets they can list on their exchange as well. So just a lot of stuff. Another interesting story this week. So the CFO of Florida's public investing arm, his name is Jimmy Patronis. I guess he went on CNBC and he said that the state holds about $800 million in, quote, crypto-related investments in their portfolio. Staggering number. He said he wouldn't be surprised if that amount would grow if President Trump were to be reelected. Pretty crazy. And he's the guy that sent a letter a couple of months ago that Florida should put a portion of their state retirement system into cryptocurrency. So this guy seems to know what he's talking about.
That's remarkable.
All right, so that's it for the week. Everyone get your rest this weekend. I don't know. It's going to be a late Tuesday night. Think it'll be a late Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night too?
Yeah, it's I'm nervous, man. I'm nervous. Ready for this low level, latent amount of stress to dissipate.
Just being able to underwrite the future one way or the other will be helpful. I'll say that.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, have a safe and healthy weekend. We will see you on Monday.